Food fraud and how to detect it is one of the key topics of discussion at the Africa Food Safety Workshop being held at the Emperor's Palace in Johannesburg. The workshop brings together leading African scientists and a wider representation of experts with the aim to promote standards, reliable testing and international cooperation for better public health and trade. Let's get more on this story now. We cross to SABC News reporter Nozintombi Miya. Very good afternoon to Nozintombi. Very interested to find out what food fraud is and what else is taking place where you are.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nzinga. And, it's such an important topic, the issue around food fraud, because, it falls into the broader issue around food safety. Africa as a continent needs to ensure that they can maintain their own food sustainability. As a continent, we need to be able to feed ourselves. And that also includes ensuring that the food that we're producing is quality tested and it is safe and it is free from fraudulent items or ingredients in it. And to talk to me a little bit more about this, I have the CEO of NAMISA, Mr. Mkufi, who's going to talk to me a little bit more about this topic. Thank you so much for joining me, CEO. The issue around, food fraud and food security, food safety is such an important issue. But when we spoke off air, what were the critical tenets around the country and the continent being prepared for this?
I think, Nozi, thank you for having me. Food security is a very important topic in the context of having safe and nutritious food. And you cannot be able to determine the safety of the food or the nutritional content of the food if you don't have quality testing that you are able to do as a country or a continent as a whole. And that's why this topic of food safety is very important in the context of ensuring food security for the continent as a whole. That what we produce is safe and nutritious. Yeah. So it cannot be secure if it is not safe. So we cannot say food security without talking food safety.
How prepared are we, though, as a country? In South Africa, how prepared are we for ensuring that our food that we prepare is quite safe?
I think as South Africa, we are relatively well prepared, but there are areas that we can improve. Such as the coordination of the different role players within the food safety sector. The regulation that is done cuts across from Department of Agriculture, Department of Health, Department of Trade and Industry, and hence we have organized this workshop today to hold hands to ensure food safety for the continent. So that is South Africa. But if we look at the continent as a whole, and we're talking Africa Continental Free Trade Area, where the trade in food is one of the big areas that will be of interest. We need to be able to have assurance that all food commodities that crosses borders to increase our economic growth are safe and they are nutritious for what they are meant to be.
Yeah, and you're quite right. Infrastructure plays a large role in this. Just talk to us a bit more about that issue.
I think when one talks infrastructure, mainly people start thinking of buildings, roads and all that. Yes, that is important for the logistics aspects of things, for the production aspect of things. But the infrastructure that I want to focus on today is the quality infrastructure, which is the measurement capability that is in the metrology system, the testing capability that is in the conformity assessments, the ability to develop standards that we can harmonize across the continent, and the ability to accredit those testing laboratories as a third-party attestation agency. So this quality infrastructure is important, and it relies on having these institutions that support our regulators and they work in harmony to ensure food safety.
Definitely, and you're quite right. Standardization of testing is critical for you, for laboratories to ensure that they can suss out food items that are fraudulent. Testing is critical.
Testing is very critical. I mean, if you consider in the context of food fraud, what happened with the melamine scandal a few years ago, where baby formula was passed as very nutritious, but it was adulterated with some compounds that makes the testing laboratories unable to pick up the fraud that is being passed on. It becomes very critical for this quality infrastructure to work together, to be prepared, as you said, to be able to pick up any such issues as they come up throughout the value chain and be able to respond quicker. Because if you, in the context of that melamine scandal, babies had malnutrition when they were being fed what is supposedly nutritious formula. So it is important for this quality infrastructure to be strongly supported to ensure that there is preparedness to respond rapidly.
Talking about the issue of preparedness, currently in the country we are dealing with the touch of the avian flu and foot and mouth disease issues with Kluvenhoven animals. How can we deal with that issue with regards to ensuring that with the testing, with the tracing, with the tracking, all that infrastructure all coming together, how can we ensure that we deal with such issues and are proactive as opposed to reactive?
And I think that is a key point you are raising. Being proactive, being able to respond before the issue becomes problematic. And that is with the surveillance programs that needs to be run, with constant monitoring and testing that needs to be done, but constant sharing of data that each of the entities that play throughout the value chain picks up as the production cycle goes. That helps us to be able to assure the safety, not only for our own consumption, but even when we want to export some of the food that we have produced, that we have excess of, that we are able to gain or generate economic growth from that export. And I mean, if you consider foot and mouth disease and the avian influenza issues that you are talking about, that's multi-billion rand businesses that gets affected.
Multi-billion rand industry that has been absolutely hardest hit, really hard hit. Before I let you go, Dadim Kufi, what ultimately are we trying to achieve here? This is day 3 of the food safety workshop. A lot of issues and a lot of topics have been raised. What are we ultimately hoping to learn from each other? As you said so eloquently in your first answer, holding hands, what are we hoping to gain?
I can best summarize it in that theme of the Congress, which is holding hands to assure food safety for Africa. So we've had experts that are engaging that comes from academia, experts that come from testing laboratories, either in the drug residue testing, pesticide residue testing, across all the food safety spectrum. Then we've got government entities that are charged, like ourselves, the National Meteorology Institute of South Africa, with ensuring that the testing is accurate, the testing can be credible and relied on, and the testing can be accepted. So we are trying to achieve that we have a more coordinated food safety program on the continent.
All right, Mr. Nkufi, we're going to leave it there. A coordinated food safety program on the continent of Africa. Really the biggest theme coming out of this week-long workshop in Zinga. Again, the issue of food fraud becoming a massive issue. I mean, food fraud is, it's crippling certain industries because it's literally, applying certain items at cheaper prices and edging out those regular industries. And it's absolutely important that workshops like these, institutions such as NAMISA and such as other institutions, are ahead of the curve and are ensuring that they're testing and ensuring that the food that is provided, imported and exported, is of the highest safety quality.